Divorce papers signed. Then she revealed 3 hidden truths that transformed everything forever. Jamie sat at the kitchen table, the divorce papers staring up at her like a judge with a gavel. The ink hadn't even dried before her heart began to sink under the weight of regret. Memories of laughter and late-night talks turned to shadows in her mind, smothered by the reality of the cost of loyalty. Tom, her high school sweetheart, was now just a footnote in her life story, and the echoes of their years together felt bitter. This was supposed to be the start of something new, a breath of fresh air, but it felt more like a forced exhale. With each tick of the clock, Jamie felt the suffocating pressure of single parenthood wrap around her. The U.S. healthcare system demanded her unwavering commitment as a nurse, always her second family. She always put others first, from her children to her patients, but now there was no one to put her first. She hesitated, the shadows of doubt creeping in. What was left of her once bright dreams? Reaching for her coffee, she wrestled with a slip of paper folded in her pocket. It was an essay from high school, an exercise on what she wanted to be when she grew up. She had forgotten those dreams, almost trapping herself within the walls of her own making. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The weight of these life-altering choices pressed against her chest. As she prepared to shuffle through her grandmother's jewelry box later that day, Jamie felt an unsettling mix of hope and dread. It was a box she'd been avoiding, filled with heirlooms that felt like burdens weighed with expectation. She had always been told to honor her family's legacy, but at what cost? Would opening that box lead her to more painful decisions or unlock doors she had long since forgotten? With every ring she lifted, a faint voice whispered, "What if you find nothing at all?" And yet, as she rummaged through memories, her fingers brushed against a fragile envelope. Ripping it open, she discovered a letter penned in delicate script, a secret about an inheritance that could change everything. Why had this been hidden? Was this her grandmother's way of letting Jamie know she could break free? Yet alongside the thrill of possibility, a two-edged sword of guilt twisted in her gut. As Jamie's heart raced, she confronted the shadow of her mother's sacrifices, an artist denied, suffocated by the belief that stability meant loyalty. This unyielding path was an inheritance she had taken and passed down to her children. With every thought, a growing storm brewed inside her. She had devoted herself to keeping the family together, but now? Did her happiness come with a price, just like her mother's had? Feeling the weight of the past and the looming decisions ahead, Jamie held the hidden letter close. The question now loomed larger than ever: could she reclaim her identity, or would she sink deeper into the legacy of silent sacrifice? Fear and hope swirled violently within her, as she stood on the precipice of transformation. The next step could change everything. Jamie stood in her dimly lit kitchen, the faint light casting shadows across the walls that felt like a reflection of her life, fragmented and uncertain. The heirloom box from her grandmother loomed on the table, its aged wood filled with artifacts of memories and a promise she had only begun to grasp. The dirt and dust were a testament to time past, but it was the letter inside that felt like a key to unknown paths. A deep breath steadied her resolve as she slipped the neatly folded paper from her pocket. The words were delicate yet transparent, echoing a familiar sentiment: life is a series of choices, Jamie, not chains. This, she realized, was her time to choose. For years, she'd been entangled in the expectations of motherhood and marriage, often at the expense of her own dreams. She had tucked her aspirations away, convinced that sacrificing for her family was her path to fulfillment. Yet, staring at the box, a flicker of rebellion ignited within her. What if she dared to redefine her narrative? The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. Jamie picked up a ring from the box, a glimmering reminder of her grandmother's passion for art, a dream she had relinquished for the constraints of family life. That legacy felt deceptive now, a shackle instead of an avenue for empowerment. It was time to reclaim not just her identity, but the artist she always had the potential to be. Driven by a newfound determination, she made a plan. Jamie started small, attending community art classes in the evenings as a form of rebellion against the life she had settled for. Each brushstroke on a canvas became an act of defiance, a silent revolt against the vestiges of her previous confinement. With every class, she rediscovered the joy of self-expression, allowing a long-buried passion to flourish. Inspiration transformed into reality. Colorful pieces emerged that communicated her struggles and triumphs, encapsulating her journey thus far. However, as she immersed herself in this world, doubt would often creep back in. What would her children think? Would Tom understand this metamorphosis? She wrestled with the implications of her choices and the reality that her transformation could unsettle the fragile equilibrium of their lives. The responsibility that came with motherhood weighed heavily on her heart, but she found clarity during moments of creativity. Her children needed to see her authentically living, not merely existing. This could be her gift to them, an example of reclaiming one's right to pursue happiness. Yet no evolution is without its obstacles. One evening, while showcasing her art in a local gallery, she encountered an old friend from Tom's circle, someone who was quick to judge and overly eager to inform her of the decisions her ex was making. The confrontation felt like an assault, breaking open wounds she thought had begun to heal. Jamie felt defensive, her renewed passion briefly overshadowed by self-doubt. Who was she to embrace joy when her past remained so tangled? The high of exposure felt bittersweet. Was this transformation genuine or merely a distraction from reality? Questions spiraled in her mind, demanding answers she was not yet ready to confront. As she stood there, facing echoing critiques from the past, Jamie realized vulnerability was part of the journey. The letter from her grandmother now pulsed with significance, a reminder that nothing worthwhile was without risk. Should she confront Tom, explain her newfound path, or retreat into silence? The uncertainty loomed larger than ever, hovering just within reach like the colors of her palette waiting to burst forth. In that moment of emotional reckoning, Jamie grabbed her phone. The choice was in her hands, but clarity danced tantalizingly out of reach. The door to her past swung open wider. Would she step through, or would the shadows of doubt consume her once again? Jamie stood in the gallery, the ambient chatter of art enthusiasts swirling around her. A recurring pulse of uncertainty coursed through her veins. The moment of confrontation with her past resonated louder now than the paintbrush strokes she had once cherished. She glanced down at her phone, the screen illuminating the shadows in her mind. She placed it back down, hesitant. Was she ready to confront Tom? The wind outside rattled the gallery's heavy glass doors, mirroring the tempest in her heart. It reminded her of a time when life felt vivid, when choices weren't weighed down by years of expectations. The vivid colors of her art hung on the walls, luminous creations that seemingly spoke louder than her feelings. But amidst that vibrance, she could feel an undeniable disconnection to her own work, as if it existed in a universe separate from her tumultuous reality. The gallery owner, an elderly woman with a keen eye for talent, approached her. "Jamie, your work is bright. It carries a weight that resonates with people. Have you considered a larger exhibit?" The flattery lit a spark of validation within Jamie, yet it was fleeting. "Thank you, but I'm still finding my footing," she replied, forcing a smile that felt thin. The potential for a larger exhibit seemed exhilarating and terrifying, reminding her of the demands of commitment. Would she be prepared to showcase her emotions to a wider audience, to risk exposing her vulnerabilities? After the event ended, she stepped outside, the night cold against her skin as if the universe was urging her to embrace the chilling reality she had tried to avoid. She thought of her children, their innocent faces seeking validation and stability. What did she want them to learn from her? That passion existed only behind closed doors? Or that true fulfillment required stepping into the light, even at the cost of discomfort? Jamie's resolve started to solidify. She could not let fear dictate her actions. The very act of painting had freed her spirit, reminding her that each stroke was a choice, much like the letters in her grandmother's note. With trembling hands, she dialed Tom's number. When he answered, his voice was less surprised than she had anticipated. "Hey, Jamie. I wasn't expecting to hear from you." "I know. I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began, her heart thumping audibly against her ribcage. "I want to talk about the kids, about us." Tom's silence stretched between them before he responded, "I think we need to keep things amicable for their sake." But Jamie was resolved. "No. It's about more than just the kids. I've started to pursue art again, and it's changed me. I need you to understand that I'm not just your ex-wife or their mother anymore, I'm me." She felt a mix of fear and relief, the words spilling out of her with a force she hadn't anticipated. His response was critical. She could hear the gears turning in his mind. Excitement melded with anxiety as she awaited the shift in their dynamic. What would he think of her decision to embrace anxiety-fueled uncertainty? "Jamie," he said slowly, "your art. It was always just a hobby to you, wasn't it?" A fiery urgency surged within her. "Not anymore, Tom. It's my lifeline. I want both of us to be happy, but I won't stifle who I am. This is how I reclaim my life." The calm that followed was heavy. She could hear him processing. Part of her feared his rebuttal might drown her newfound strength, but the other part knew she had taken a pivotal step towards authenticity. As they hung up, a whirlwind of emotions flooded her. Doubts entwined with determination. Decisions held heavy weight. What awaited her on the other side of this conversation? With resolve knitting her brow, she stepped back into the gallery to retrieve her art. It was time she conveyed a more profound message both to herself and the world around her. The warmth of the lights felt different now, igniting a sense of potential. But that spark came with a cost, the risk of another confrontation, perhaps with Tom's assessments, his confusion, or the judgment of others. Yet she no longer felt alone. Each brushstroke from the past and every new piece she created was not just a reflection of her journey but an invitation to others to witness her transformation. As she packed up her art, including the frames that held her raw emotions, Jamie pondered her next move. She had laid the foundation for a more authentic life, but would embracing it mean risking everything again? One thought clung to the edges of her mind: was it too late to weave a new fabric for her future, or was she gathering the final threads for a journey yet untraveled? The choices lay ahead, and the canvas was blank. But vibrant colors waited if she dared to embrace them. With the evening's chill still clinging to her skin, Jamie felt invigorated rather than defeated. Taking a deep breath, she turned toward the gallery's entrance, her heart pounding, not with fear, but with a fierce sense of purpose. It wasn't just about art anymore. It was about her life, her children, and her newly discovered desire to reclaim her true self. Stepping back into the gallery briefly, she took one last look at her vibrant artwork. Each piece now felt alive, no longer just a reflection of her past struggles but a testament to her resilience and growth. Tomorrow, she would reach out to that elderly gallery owner about planning a larger exhibit. The time for hesitance was over, it was time for action. As she headed home, the streets felt alive with possibility. The city was illuminated, its lights twinkling like the stars she used to admire while dreaming of painting in the warmth of her studio. That night, she settled in with her sketchbook, letting her pencil dance across the page. With each stroke, she found a revelation, a liberation of thoughts and emotions that had long been bottled up. Art no longer felt like a hobby. It was a dialogue between her inner thoughts and the outside world. The hours slipped away as she sketched her feelings about Tom, her children, and her ambitions. She could imagine how she would articulate her journey to her audience, allowing them to perceive the swirls of vulnerability and strength that colored her existence. Perhaps this art, raw and honest, could bridge the gap between her past inaction and her present resolve. When sleep finally crept in, her dreams plunged her into complex emotions, swirling thoughts of her conversations with Tom and the uncertainty of the future. However, one thought rose above the rest, the stark realization that she needed to be brave and fully commit to her art. During her reverie, she uncovered a long-buried memory, a sketch she created in college that never saw the light of day, one that encapsulated her vision for a future she had once envisioned. The next day, energy coursed within her as she began to reconstruct that old notion into a series inspired by each of her emotions: the joy, the fear, the aching longing for authenticity. Every canvas would tell her story, leading to the significant narrative she wanted to share at the exhibit. Time began to fly as she poured her efforts into producing a collection that resonated with her truth, and she felt even more connected to the reason she had started painting in the first place. Yet, even as the colors flowed from her palette to the canvas, doubts would occasionally sneak in. What if Tom viewed her true passion with disdain? What if her children struggled to understand her decisions? Would her ambition distract from her responsibilities? The balance of her aspirations with her family life began to weigh on her mind again. Jamie decided to confront these fears rather than let them fester. This was part of her journey, not only to forgive herself for what she had chosen in the past but to invite her family into her newfound vision. That evening, she gathered her children around the dinner table, where she shared her enthusiasm about her art. To her surprise, their eyes sparkled with interest rather than confusion. Their curiosity was palpable, and she could sense their eagerness to understand this side of her they had once only glimpsed. "Mom, will we get to see your art?" her youngest exclaimed, innocent wonder in her voice. "Yes, you will, my loves," Jamie replied, warmth spreading through her at their enthusiasm. "I'm creating something special, and I want you to be part of it." But even as she reveled in this moment of connection, a subtle tension loomed. Tom would likely want to meet with her again to discuss their evolving dynamics, and she didn't know what sort of confrontation that meeting might bring. Was she ready to defend her newfound identity, or would the shadows of the past loom over their conversation once more? Deep down, Jamie understood that self-acceptance was only the beginning. She had to prepare for the confrontation that awaited her. And as she closed her eyes that night, dreams of vibrant hues and bold strokes danced through her mind. Tomorrow would be significant. Would she manage to navigate the complexities of her relationships without losing the progress she had made? The real test was just around the corner. Jamie woke to the soft light of dawn breaking through her window, casting a warm glow on the canvases lining her studio. Each piece, an echo of her thoughts and feelings, stood as a reminder of her journey. Today was the day she would meet Tom, and the weight of that impending conversation hung heavy in her chest. It was a confrontation laced with uncertainty, but the exhilarating belief in her art fueled her resolve. After a quick breakfast with her children, during which they playfully debated colors and techniques as if they were seasoned critics, Jamie grabbed her sketchbook. There was comfort in the familiar act of creating. It grounded her as she mentally prepared for what lay ahead. She sketched feverishly, pouring her anticipation and fears onto the page, transmuting her anxiety into artistic fervor. As the morning slipped away, Jamie rehearsed the conversation in her mind. She wanted to express her passion and ensure her children felt secure amidst these changes. Still, the thought of various possible outcomes gnawed at her. She imagined Tom questioning her commitment to family, belittling her dreams. The thought triggered an unsettling feeling in the pit of her stomach. After final touches on her latest painting, Jamie realized she had been avoiding the reality of the meeting. There was no escaping it. She pulled her phone from her pocket and checked the time. It was almost noon, and Tom would arrive soon. Her heart raced, but as she placed her hand on the cool surface of her favorite canvas, she felt a surge of clarity. The doorbell jolted her from her thoughts, and she took a steadying breath. The interplay of emotions inside her was like a vibrant, chaotic palette. One moment she felt empowered, and the next, a deep-rooted trepidation. Opening the door, she was struck by Tom's expression, a mix of concern and uncertainty mirrored in his eyes. "Hey," she greeted, trying to keep her tone light while noting the tension coiling in her stomach. "Can we talk?" He stepped inside, glancing around at the scattered art supplies. There was an unfamiliar sense of vulnerability about him that tugged at Jamie. They were both seeking understanding in this new dynamic. "Of course," she replied, leading him to the living room where they could sit. As they settled, Jamie's thoughts raced. How could she articulate her journey without sounding defensive? The conversation first waded into family schedules, discussions of the children's activities and shared duties. But as Tom's gaze drifted toward her artwork, she sensed the shift. "I didn't realize how much you were working on," he stated, his tone heavy with unspoken tension. "Is this what you've been fully invested in since everything?" Jamie seized the opening. "This is me, Tom. I've struggled for so long with who I am outside of being a mother or a wife. I finally feel ready to reclaim that woman, and it's not about rejecting you or the kids. It's about including you." He clenched his jaw, hearing the depth of her commitment but recoiling from the idea that their roles might change. "But what about the time we need to spend as a family?" Her heart ached at the hesitation in his voice. It was that fear which had once paralyzed her. "I need you to understand, this is not a distraction but a necessity. I've learned that my happiness directly impacts my ability to be present for you and the kids." The silence stretched between them as Tom absorbed her words. Jamie sensed his reluctance and realized he was grappling with his own insecurities about their changing relationship, as well. "What if our paths are diverging?" he finally asked, the weight of his question settling heavily in the air. "That may be true, but I refuse to lose myself in the process. I want to let fear dictate the narrative for us. I need to explore what we can become instead of fixating on what we were." Tom looked conflicted, grappling with the landscapes of their changing roles, but Jamie held her breath, determined to stand firm. She knew this was a pivotal moment, showing her strength and her commitment would require both of them to redefine their relationship. As the conversation continued, Jamie could sense that Tom was beginning to backtrack, withdrawing into his carefully constructed facade. The arrogance that once plagued them both was lifting, and the vulnerability emerging was raw and unpolished. Yet, the old ghosts of regret still lingered. Just as she pressed deeper, wanting to explore the ground they stood, the phone buzzed in her pocket, jolting her focus. Pulling it out, she glanced at the screen, a message from the gallery owner. "Are you ready for this?" Jamie whispered to herself, overwhelmed. The moment held promise but also jeopardy. Was she prepared to step forward into this new world? Would the revelations she longed to share lead to understanding or push them both further apart? As she shared the details of the budding exhibit, she knew their future was hanging on the edge of a precipice. Would Tom's newfound acknowledgement of her passion align alongside her desire for independence? The intricate canvas of their relationship was being painted anew, but as she cautiously navigated this chapter, Jamie felt an unmistakable urgency. All that remained was the question: would this confrontation forge a new alliance, or would it dissolve them into a painful distance? And with each word exchanged, she sensed a change settling between them. A revelation was brewing, but what truth would emerge? As Jamie recounted the exciting details of her upcoming exhibit, she felt a tremor of anticipation ripple through her. Every word she shared was a brushstroke on the canvas of her life, yet revelations came at a cost. Tom listened attentively, his brow furrowed in contemplation, but Jamie could see the tension tightening around his lips. The air thickened with each heartstring tug she made, and she wondered if she had crossed a line into too much vulnerability. An exhibit just like that. "I didn't realize it had become such a priority," Tom said slowly, as if trying to digest the implications of her declaration. His gaze dropped to the floor, as if he could avoid confronting the emotional landscape they'd been navigating. "It's not just a priority, it's a part of me that has been lying dormant," Jamie emphasized, her voice steadying with newfound resolve. "I need to show that I can be more than just mom or wife. I want the kids to see me pursuing my dreams, passion, life. But can't that wait until we've got things sorted out?" He winced, unaware that he was tethering her aspirations to the chaos of their current reality. "No," she asserted. The word hung between them, stark and definitive. If I wait, I may lose parts of myself that are irreplaceable. The weight of her candidness pressed against her chest, fear mingling with unwavering determination. Tom shifted his posture. She sensed the shift in him as an internal reckoning began. If you do this, if you throw yourself into art, what happens to us? His question opened a chasm of dread and hope within her. Would the authenticity she craved come at the expense of their family? Jamie felt torn, yet a glimmer of conviction flickered in the recesses of her mind. Maybe what we need isn't just clarity about me, but about us. Who are we now? The silence that followed was unsettling, filled with unspoken words that danced around regrets and unfulfilled promises. The pull of action was strong, like a raw nerve sparked by desire. We need to envision who we want to be moving forward, not only as individuals but together. I don't want this to be the end. Jamie felt the tremor of emotion reflected in her words, raw and unrefined. As Tom pondered her heartfelt admission, Jamie found herself inching closer to a revelation she wasn't fully ready to confront. What if our paths diverging isn't a bad thing? She mused aloud, feeling an increasing sense of lucidity. What if it means we can both grow? What if by pursuing my passion, I become a better partner and parent even if it means changing how we interact? Tom raised his gaze, searching her face for answers he didn't possess. The uncertain understanding hinted at a shared fear of loss, of not being enough, of change unraveling comfort. She took a deep breath, feeling her heart race as a truth nestled within her consciousness began to blossom. You have to decide what you want, too. What do you want? It struck both of them like lightning, a profound question that pushed them into new territory. A fraying thread of connection confronted an evolving narrative that could either unite them or fracture their bond further. Tom rubbed his temples as if hoping to ease the sudden weight settling on his shoulders. I know I'm scared of losing you. I'm scared, too, Jamie revealed. But we can't ignore that we're in a space we never anticipated. The realization that fear could coalesce into growth instead of stagnation electrified her resolve. Perhaps this was the shift, the awakening of shared potential. Yet as she leaned into the notion, the boundary separating hope from doubt began to blur, swallowing her whole. Moments later, Tom's phone buzzed, interrupting their fragile peace. Jamie noticed a flicker of annoyance on his face, a stark reminder that their reality was still filled with everyday distractions. Could they dismantle the barriers constantly intruding on their ability to communicate? Before Tom could respond, Jamie felt a flood of urgency surging within her. In that moment, she reached toward the unfinished canvas nearby, eyes heavy with inspiration and desperation. She needed to leave him with an embodiment of her purpose, a reflection of their current state. Let me show you, she said urgently, spinning her sketchbook around to a blank page. Let us visualize how we can change together. Tom hesitated but leaned closer, intrigued. It was a moment that could redefine everything, a small yet monumental shift toward understanding. But then, unexpectedly, Jamie felt a dark thought creep into her mind. Her secret, carefully guarded until now, loomed over her. Would disclosing it break the fragile thread of connection they were attempting to weave, or was it vital for true transparency? As she looked at Tom, her heart raced at the intersection of fear and liberation. The stakes were higher than ever, and Jamie knew that whatever she decided next could reshape everything. And as her pen hovered above the page, she realized, perhaps the most daunting truth was the one still left to unveil. Had she waited too long to confront it? Jamie's heart raced as she held the pen above the page, suspended between revelation and concealment. The undeniable weight of the moment bore down on her, a tempest of emotions clashing within her mind. Would revealing her secret, the truth about her feelings toward family, art, and her identity, be an act of liberation or destruction? Tom's hopeful expression softened, hinting that he craved resolution. Yet, what lay beneath his gaze? Was it fear etched in every crease of his forehead, or the reluctant spark of curiosity? Her hand trembled slightly, a nerve firing in her subconscious urging her to share. But beneath that impulse simmered another, doubt. What if exposing her deepest truth shattered the fragile bond they were beginning to mend? She cleared her throat, fully aware that the dimensions of their relationship teetered on the brink of transformation. "Tom, there is something I've kept from you, something I've kept from myself," she began cautiously. "What is it?" he asked, urgency weaving through his tone. Was he truly prepared for the answers she had withheld? Looking down at the blank canvas, Jamie felt the hold of hesitation. But the clarity from their earlier discussion illuminated a path. This wasn't just about her, it was about forging a new way to connect with Tom, to invite him into the realm of her true self. "I've often felt like I was living for others," she confessed, her voice thickening with emotion. "As if I had to suppress my dreams to be worthy of this life. I've been scared to chase my passion because I thought it might cost us everything." The second stretched into a heavy silence. Was this the key to reconciliation or a surefire way to coast into heartbreak? She continued, driven by an urgent desire for authenticity. "When I look at my art, I see fragments of who I am: brilliant, vibrant, chaotic. When I am with the kids or you, I often wear a mask." Tom's jaw clenched. Each shift he made a physical manifestation of the internal battle coursing through him. "What does that mean for us, Jamie?" he asked slowly, seeking the unraveling possibilities in her words. "It means we need to redefine ourselves, not just as a couple but as individuals. I am not just your partner or their mother, I am Jamie, an artist, a dreamer. If I don't honor that part of me, I might end up resenting not just myself but everyone around me." The challenge of change felt invigorating, yet daunting. As she spoke, Jamie sensed a stirring responsibility for herself, one she hadn't fully embraced until now, but this was just the tip of the iceberg. The fears she had stifled began surfacing, fears of loss and possible resentment. "I understand that laying this groundwork might feel like it shifts the foundation beneath us," she continued, emotions swirling like brushstrokes on her canvas, "but we can grow in different directions and still meet at the crossroads." "You're saying growth means we could become different versions of ourselves?" Tom's voice dripped with uncertainty laced with a hint of understanding. "Yes," Jamie exclaimed, the word a breath of fresh air invigorating her resolve. "I think we might flourish separately and together. I have to pursue my art not to escape but to find my fullest self, and I believe it can enrich what we have." Tom's gaze dropped, and she felt the tension between them morph into a kind of kinship nestled in mutual vulnerability. The magnitude of their struggle was palpable, yet it felt less like a definitive fracture and more like an invitation to explore a new way of being. Jamie inhaled deeply, a wave of confidence washing over her. "And there is something even deeper," she added, stopping her pen above the sketchbook. "I think I've been battling feelings about this life we've built, about who we are as partners. If I'm honest, I liked the idea of it, but I always wondered if I was really meant for this role." His eyes widened, and she felt the ripple of impact vibrate between them. This was uncharted territory. The very foundation of their life together now rested precariously on stark honesty. As Jamie stood at the crossroads of her revelation, she sensed both an exhilarating freedom and paralyzing fear. Would laying bare her heart unleash a tide of resentment, or would it nurture understanding? Uncertainty thickened the air, but something deep inside told her transformation was on the horizon. How powerful could self-reflection become if they embraced their fears together? As the pen finally touched the paper, she whispered the final thought she had yet to share. "What if I have always wanted something more, something that represents not just my life as your wife, but my life, full stop." With each word, Jamie felt a world of possibility open before her, yet the impending sense of what lay ahead intertwined with uncertainty. What responses awaited her beyond this moment? Would their vows bend under the weight of newfound autonomy, or would they find strength in redefined partnership? And as the ink dried, Jamie stared at the outline of her thoughts, heart pounding with unresolved tension. This was merely the beginning of a significant exploration, and she now wondered, what would it reveal about them both? The air thickened with tension, the silence amplifying the tumult of thoughts racing through Jamie's mind. She had taken a step into the unknown, but doubt nibbled at the edges of her resolve. Tom's expression morphed an intricate tapestry of emotion flaring and settling. She had laid her heart bare, but now came the moment of reckoning. Could her honesty truly reforge their connection, or was she merely laying the groundwork for its demise? "I think I need some space," Tom finally murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, laden with both gravity and resignation. Space. The word hung between them like an apparition, conjuring visions of endless uncertainty. Jamie nodded, but the acceptance felt more like a defeat, as if the very foundation of their partnership trembled. "Okay," she replied, despite the lump forming in her throat. This was the bravest conclusion she had drawn yet. It was time to embrace the possibility of her own journey, even if that journey meant being apart for a while. With shared vulnerability weighing on them, Tom broke his gaze and turned to the stillness of the room, their home, now imbued with a sense of fragility. Jamie felt as if she were being unmoored, a ship drifting into uncharted waters. The echo of his footsteps reverberated in her mind, a somber reminder that she was indeed sailing alone. Days turned into a blur of reflections and restless nights. Jamie sought refuge in her art, the one constant sanctuary she had sort of forgotten in the chaos of their coexistence. Each brushstroke became a cathartic release, and with every stroke, pieces of herself emerged from the depths of her creativity. In this solitary pursuit, she discovered a wellspring of passion buried beneath years of self-imposed constraints. But it was not just the art. Conversations with herself became deeper, quieter, but also more potent. Questions bubbled up: who was she beyond the roles she played? Who was Jamie when she peeled back the layers of daughter, mother, and wife? In the stillness of her studio, she confronted the reality of her ambitions. She yearned to paint not simply for herself but to express the voice untamed by expectations. One evening, as dusk spilled through her window, a sudden spark ignited within her, a narrative formed not merely for self-exploration, but a project that demanded her voice, an exhibition that encapsulated her journey, her evolving identity, a blending of struggle and hope. With fervor, Jamie began to map out a collection of pieces, each representing a facet of her internal conflict. Titled Fragments Reclaimed, the exhibition would showcase the evolution from discontent to empowerment. As she painted, the colors sang of resilience, the textures whispered of vulnerability, and the forms danced with self-discovery. But launching into this endeavor carried risks. It demanded faith, not just in herself, but in how it might influence the world around her. Was she prepared to share her most intimate struggles in such an exposed manner? What if her family supported her, and her fervor was met with indifference or misunderstanding? For weeks, she balanced her newfound commitment with the demands of family. She organized schedules to carve out time for her art while still navigating responsibilities at home. Each moment she stole for herself felt thrilling yet frightening. She was no longer just living for others, but also actively prioritizing her own passions. The date of the exhibition loomed. Jamie shared the news with Tom, her anticipation tinged with nerves. She wanted him to understand, not only as a partner but as someone integral to her evolution. But how could he comprehend this intricate self-recovery without feeling the impending weight of loss? Gathering courage, she proposed trying to attend the exhibition together, hoping that sharing this triumph might illuminate the depths of her transformation. She pictured the connection they could reclaim, a collaboration of support and growth. Yet, she knew, such hopes could also ignite conflict. As the emotional climax approached, Jamie stood at the threshold of revelation. Would unveiling her art solidify their bridge to understanding, or would it amplify the existential distance that now defined them? She could feel it in her bones. Soon, she would learn if reconnecting was possible, but would it come at a price she'd long feared to pay? What awaited her on the other side of the gallery door? As she laid the final brushstrokes, Jamie recognized that although she was embarking on a solitary journey of self-discovery, this expression could redefine everything. She took a deep breath, readying herself, but the question reverberated loudly in her mind: would this be the beginning of their real healing or the final chime that sent them further apart? Jamie stood in her studio, surrounded by the vibrant canvases that showcased her journey, her fingers stained with paint, remnants of her labor. As the exhibition date approached, the anticipation swirled like colors on her palette, mixing excitement with the fear of exposure. The thought of inviting Tom to witness her transformation felt both exhilarating and precarious. What if he didn't see her growth? What if her unveiling of self through art only deepened their divide? With each completed piece, Jamie felt an inner confidence burgeon. Each painting acted as a mirror, reflecting her conflicting emotions, her deep-seated hopes, and the shadows of her past. Fragments Reclaimed was not just an exhibition, it symbolized her reclamation of identity. However, the truth of her vulnerability loomed larger than the canvases themselves. In the days that followed, she received unexpected encouragement from friends and fellow artists. Conversations blossomed over coffee, igniting discussions about their individual struggles and journeys. Jamie found herself resonating with the stories of others, their tumult echoing her own. Each shared experience nourished her belief in the significance of her own voice. Yet, the weight of Tom's absence loomed. She vacillated between pride for her accomplishments and a sinking realization that her journey was not yet shared. The space Tom had asked for felt like both a necessary pause and a chasm threatening to swallow her whole. Doubts crawled in, whispering that perhaps the distance between them would perpetuate their misunderstandings. As she prepared her artist statement, Jamie's resolve hardened. She was not just a woman seeking understanding, she was forging an identity entwined with her art. The act of laying her soul bare through each piece would serve as a testament to her evolution. It could either alienate her from Tom or illuminate a pathway toward reconciliation. With an enigmatic blend of determination and apprehension, she confronted the blank sheet of paper. The artist's statement demanded authenticity, her authentic voice needed to emerge without dilution. How could she express what Fragments Reclaimed truly meant to her? She delved deep, reflecting on the critical moments that had shaped her resolve. It was a journey through darkness to light, an exploration of isolation both self-imposed and relational. After hours of drafting and revising, the words finally fell into place. Just as she sat back, satisfied, the doorbell rang. Startled, Jamie waited a heartbeat before making her way to the door. Peeking through the window, her heart raced. It was Tom. Opening the door, his gaze met hers, an amalgamation of longing and uncertainty flickering across his face. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension. She longed to invite him in, yet dread swirled at the thought of the conversation that lay ahead. They exchanged tentative hellos, awkwardly acknowledging the changes that had taken place since their last conversation. "How are you?" Tom's voice wavered, blending vulnerability with a probing curiosity. "I've been painting," Jamie replied, the weight of the revelation pressing on her chest. "And I'm having an exhibition in a week." His eyes widened, a flicker of surprise piercing the unconscious barrier that had formed. "You're really going through with it?" "I have to," she said, feeling a surge of defiance. "It's my voice, Tom, it's who I am beyond everything else." The silence stretched out, each second brimming with portent. Jamie felt both terrified and liberated. This moment would either stitch fragments back together or shred them anew. "I want to come," he finally said, the sincerity of his words reverberating between them. "I want to understand." But even as she nodded, a disconcerting feeling tugged at her heart. Would his presence lend strength, or would it turn into another point of contention? Jamie had ventured so deep into self-discovery, she wasn't sure if she was ready to navigate the waters of his comprehension. As they spoke more about the upcoming exhibition, Jamie felt a renewed sense of hope seep through the crevices of her uncertainty. Maybe this encounter was a critical turning point, a chance to bridge their gap of understanding. But would it ultimately lead to healing, or would she be spilling open raw emotions in front of a man still grappling with their reality? As Tom left that evening, Jamie stared back at her canvases, her heart fluttering between hope and fear. She pondered what truths she would reveal not just in her artwork but in their conversations. The impending exhibition became a symbol of potential reconciliation and perhaps, a reckoning of their unaddressed issues. Could she embrace this moment as a doorway to healing? Or would it serve only to remind them of what lay fractured? With the exhibition date drawing close and Tom's commitment lingering in the air, Jamie sensed that the true test of her evolution was yet to come. Would they find common ground, or would her pursuit of self-discovery further expose the fissures they had yet to confront? The day of the exhibition arrived, and Jamie stood before her canvases, their vibrant colors reflecting every ounce of her tumultuous journey. The gallery buzzed with energy, artists mingled with patrons, laughter and conversations entwining like paint on a palette. Yet, despite the electric atmosphere, an undercurrent of anxiety coursed through her veins. This was her moment, but it also bore the weight of unresolved emotions regarding Tom. As guests began to walk through the exhibit, Jamie felt a mixture of pride and vulnerability surge within her. Each artwork represented a chapter of her life, a window into her soul, fragments of her past laid bare for scrutiny. This wasn't merely about art, it was an act of reclamation, a declaration of her identity. Then, her heart leaped as she spotted Tom entering the room. A part of her had yearned for this moment, while another part quaked. Could he truly understand the power behind these paintings? Would he see her growth, or would the shadows of their shared past cloud his vision? Tom approached, his eyes scanning the vibrant displays. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever response might follow. When their gazes finally locked, she saw a blend of admiration and trepidation in his expression. He was both intrigued and cautious. "This is incredible, Jamie," he said, his voice tinged with awe. "I can't believe how raw and beautiful this work is." "Thank you," she replied, her heart swelling with a mixture of satisfaction and fear. "Creating these pieces helped me find my voice again." "I can see that," he said, studying one of her cruder, more expressive pieces. "Your growth is evident, but I can't help but wonder, where does that leave us?" The question hung between them, heavy with history. Jamie squeezed her eyes shut for a brief moment, summoning her courage. "I believe we need to redefine who we are, not just as individuals, but as partners," she said, looking directly into his eyes. "This journey isn't just for me, it's for us, too. We can grow in different directions and still support each other." Tom's brow furrowed as he pondered her words. "But what if it means our paths diverge?" Jamie stepped closer, feeling the warmth of determination flood through her. "Diverging does not mean breaking apart. It means evolving, embracing who we are as individuals and finding common ground anew. If we don't allow ourselves to explore our own lives, we might end up resenting each other in the long run." His gaze softened, and Jamie could see the wheels turning in his mind as he grappled with the implications. "You're right," he finally admitted, a hint of vulnerability breaking through. "I see how passionate you are. Maybe I've been too afraid of change myself." The conversation flowed, more open and honest than ever before. Each exchanged word, like strokes on a canvas, painted their evolving relationship anew. Art hadn't just been her means of self-discovery, it was a vehicle for their potential reconnection. Jamie felt a sense of liberation rush through her, knowing that by sharing her truth, she had opened a pathway for Tom to share his. "That piece over there," he pointed to a canvas splashed with bold colors and jagged lines, a representation of inner turmoil. "It feels like a heavy release." "Was that about our journey?" "Yes," she nodded, grateful for his attentive listening. "It illustrates how deeply conflicted I felt, like I was suffocating under the weight of who I thought I had to be. But now, I see it as something I needed to go through to become who I am today." Tom took another step back, contemplating the art that encapsulated so much more than mere paint. "I want to be part of that journey for both of us," he replied, his voice laced with sincerity. "I don't want distance to define us any longer." Tears pooled in Jamie's eyes, but they were tears of relief, not sorrow. Here was someone recognizing her struggle, willing to explore the chasms that had emerged between them. She felt a sense of empowerment wash over her, realizing that the confrontation of emotions had become a catalyst for growth. They were not simply reclaiming past memories but forging a future built on authenticity. As guests congratulated her and expressed admiration for her work, Jamie turned to Tom with renewed confidence. "The past will always be part of our story, but we can write new chapters together." Tom smiled, a warmth in his expression that drew her closer. "Before this, I thought I was losing you, but now I see we are opening up to something profound, something we can experience side by side." With that, Jamie felt a weight lift from her shoulders. This was the transformation she had long hoped for, the convergence of self-discovery and renewed connection. As they stood amidst the vibrant backdrop of her creations, Jamie recognized that she had conquered the shadows of self-doubt through honest expression. She wasn't merely the woman defined by her roles, she was an artist reclaiming her voice. The gallery buzzed around them, but in that moment, Jamie stood grounded in her identity. She had achieved not just a personal renaissance but invited Tom to partake in a shared journey toward understanding and growth. They were no longer bound by the chains of the past, they were individuals embarking on a new path. And as the exhibition unfolded, with laughter and celebration echoing through the space, Jamie felt solid confidence fill her heart. She had proved that embracing passion could reshape their lives and rekindle connections thought lost. In this canvas of existence, they had begun to paint their new reality, vibrant and unconfined. As evening approached, Jamie turned to Tom, determination rekindling the passion in her eyes. "Let us take on this journey together. Let's redefine who we are, not just as individuals but as partners ready to celebrate life." "Absolutely," he replied, a glimmer of excitement in his eyes. In that moment, Jamie understood this was only the beginning of a new chapter, one built on shared resilience, art, and the unwavering courage to reclaim not just her identity but their love. The exhibition had marked a transformative starting point, solidifying Jamie's growth and illuminating the horizon of possibilities awaiting them both. And as she breathed in the vibrant energy of the gallery, she felt an undeniable truth: they were ready to conquer whatever challenges lay ahead. Now, let's not let this journey end here. You need to subscribe now to dive deeper into these emotional stories and witness transformations happen. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep these powerful tales alive. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. And comment below with your reactions and theories. Your voice matters in this narrative of personal overcoming. Let us keep this journey going together.